What is the dumbest thing you've gotten in trouble for at school? In first grade, I finished a test and flipped my paper over indicating that I was done. Waiting for the others to finish, I drifted off into daydreaming. I snapped out of it when my teacher yelled at me for staring at another classmate's paper and copying their answers when my test was already flipped over and I was simply daydreaming. Still salty about this, and I'm 21. I got referral for being pushed down a flight of stairs by a bully. He got a detention, but no. I get punished more because I must have provoked him. Yes. Because the school bully needs a reason. UK detention is 1 hour after school. Referral means entire school day in a room, working in silence. When I was a kid in charter school, we used to have to walk in line with our hands behind our backs. And I ran out of line to hug my mom, who surprised me at school that day. I got detention. Duck you, Ms. Baxter. I once showed a teacher that you could remove pen graffiti from the tables by drawing over in pencil and using an eraser to rub both off. She said she better not catch me doing that. Okay. I was a senior in high school. We had just finished taking marching band pictures outside on a really hot day. Those uniforms are awful when it's hot. Anyway, we come inside to do section pictures and I have my jacket off for a minute to catch some air. I have asthma and was having a hard time breathing. A band parent comes over and tells me to put my jacket back on, and I asked her to give me just a second. She goes and tells my band director that I was being flat out defiant. He yells at me before I get a chance to explain. Lets me explain myself. Then he apologized. Sharing a friend's locker. His teacher caught me opening his locker and sent me to the detention accountability room. The lady in charge told me that it was a stupid reason for me to get in trouble for and send me back to my class. Edit, spelling is hard. I made finger gums and said I. I did this to a friend at the busport. Not during class or anything. I was pulled aside and told to stop making gang signs and pro-gum signals. I was threatened with suspension and ended up getting a detention. The teacher did some moronic thing and some kid did a sarcastic slow clap when he turned his back. He warned Emmy not to do it again. Went back to chalkboard and the same kid did it again. Thing is, I had my arm in a cast. I physically could not make a clapping sound without taking my trousers off and slapping my leg or slapping my face. Teacher, stuck in a square. If you clap one more time, you will be sent out. Turns around. Other kid claps. Teacher, I told you not to clap. Get out of my classroom and go to the headmaster. Me, I have a broken arm. How am I clapping? Teacher, get out. Screw middle-aged men at private school. Bending a paper clip and laying it on my desk. Then the substitute teacher, she was probably about 70 at the time, came over and told me this is a weapon. I was 8 years old. Some girl came in crying to the classroom and picked me out, saying that I scratched her with my keys. I've never interacted with the girl in my life. Also, got suspended. I got detention for not attending a class I didn't have. Explanation: I was homeschooled for half of my classes. So at the time I had a first, second, and fourth period class. Rather than walk 20 minutes home, I hung out in the library and would help the librarians shelve books. The head librarian was extremely rude. So I decided not to do that anymore. After informing the assistant librarian. One day later, my mother and I are in the principal's office for truancy, which my mother obviously argues against. The principal says she'll graciously give me 1 day detention rather than a week suspension, which is the typical punishment. I went through almost 6 years of high school without getting a single detention. Probably a month or two before graduating. One of my friends ditched school for about 20 minutes to go to McDonald's. He arrived back at school with a bunch of hash browns for my circle of mates to eat. And so naturally I had one. Later that day I was called into the deputy principal's office and was told off for leaving the school grounds. I received a lunchtime detention and was the only one that got caught. In the hallway I said I missed the stupidest answer on the test, not too grammatically correct. But I was in middle school. A teacher came out of her class and berated me for my vulgar language and tried to get me to apologize for swearing so loudly in the hallway. I sincerely had no idea what she was talking about. And I basically just kept playing dumb. I really don't know what you are referring to or what you heard me say. I promise I didn't swear in the hallway, etc. According to my friend who was in her class, the teacher thought I said that was a stupid ass test. I was suspended for a full week for looking up dark poetry. In elementary I forged my mother's signature on a permission slip to go to the zoo. They called her to tell her that she had signed the paper but forgot to check yes or no. I was so close. Did you just forget to give her the slip to sign, or would they have refused to let you go? I had forgotten to give it to her. Having a bra strap showing. I was in drama practice and wanted to get water from the fountain. So I took off my silly costume top and left the auditorium. Yard duty immediately saw me and proceeded to berate me, despite knowing me and the fact that I was a good kid who never got into trouble. A strong runner-up would be for answering a call from my uncle. It was lunch. The call was less than a minute. And he was wishing me a happy birthday. My phone was confiscated for the rest of the day because I was told talking on the phone instead of with my friends was antisocial. It's the explanation that gets me the most. The only time I ever got detention was because someone sneezed. I responded with bless you. And then I got written up for being disruptive. I found out coke was a drug by accident. I made a joke about a classmate's dad selling coke. And in my head I imagined him driving around in a big rig with Coca-Cola labeling on it. Similar to the delivery drivers. The teacher reported it to the principal and I got scolded for talking about Drew Gus in class. I had no malicious intent. I genuinely did not know what it was. But since I was 11 when it happened, the principal just assumed I was lying when I said I didn't know what crack coke was. What punishment did you get? Luckily, just the scolding. She quickly switched gears to scolding me about another thing I did earlier that week. Friend of mine once got called out for staring at the teacher, was told to pay attention. When I was in the 6th grade my teacher got mad at me for slouching. He told us to get our textbooks out and I had to lean back in my chair so I could see where it is. And he was right behind me and said see me at my desk. He gave me a detention during the first week because one of his rules is that you can't lean back in your chair. I got detention once for getting injured. I was in prep and somehow ended up headbutting a metal bar across one of those wooden jungle gym things, like this, giving me 2 black eyes. I swore that someone pushed me but no one else would back me up. So I got detention for lying. They didn't even call my parents to let them know I'd been hurt. I just had to sit in the corner of shame in the classroom for the rest of the day. My parents were furious when they picked me up from school. Hijacking the school pass system and claimed to be God. Now that I think about it, it probably wasn't a good idea at Catholic school. Not me. But a friend of mine once got in trouble for pushing someone else. When really, he was trying to catch them from falling backwards. Teacher passed by the room to see my friend with his arms out towards a person falling. Without any questions. The teacher said he would see my friend in detention. He also once got yelled at for softly singing a song to someone during a tornado drill. When the song he was singing was to calm someone else down. They made us play field hockey against other schools that practiced more and were much better than we were. We had an hour a week practice. Most other schools we played had 1-2 hours a day. They also had proper AstroTurf pitches. We had grass. And they made us stay late on a Saturday to go off to these posh schools and lose every week. By the 7th-8th week of the season, we were playing another school and 8-0 down before halftime. Not helped by the fact their umpire kept getting stuff wrong and penalizing us for things that weren't in the rules. And ignoring violations by his own team. At the halftime talk, we all agreed to just stop playing and go home. Our coach wouldn't let us. So instead we decided to use our hockey sticks as snooker cues, carefully pinging the ball around the pitch. The other team had no idea what we were doing, and it's technically legal. So we just pinged it directly into the corner and claimed we'd scored a pocket. Happily, our punishment was not being allowed to represent the school at hockey again. So it all worked out nicely. I had a teacher go tell the year level head on me for talking back to him on a school camp. This was when he insisted that you had to boil the water before adding the instant noodles, rather than simply boiling the water with them in there. My point was that it mattered little. A grown man couldn't handle that level of back talk. I believe I was in first grade at the time. The whole school was assembled in the lunchroom. It was unbelievably loud. I covered my ears and it was still too loud. I had my head down, and there was a crumb on the table in front of me. I noticed that by slightly shifting my head, my perception would change such that the location of the crumb seemed to shift. I'd nudge my head one way and it would go up, and the other it would go down. So I started saying it to myself. Up, down, up, down, up, down. It made the loud obnoxious lunchroom noise fade away. Next thing I knew, a teacher clapped her hand on my shoulder. I took my fingers out of my ears and looked up into a silent lunchroom. The teachers had told everyone to be quiet, and my dumbass was still saying up, down, up, down, up, down. I spent this assembly in the office. Not me. A friend in high school. My school had a very strict zero tolerance policy in regards to cursing and was slap in the middle of the Bible Belt. A very legit religious guy wore this shirt that said God's last name is not damn it on the front, and a Bible verse on the back about taking the Lord's name in vain or something. They made him take it off, and they couldn't send him home, so they just had him put on a shirt out of the lost and found box and gave him in school detention. It was a Marlboro Man shirt. In 10th grade biology I wrote Don Heck and some dust on a counter in the back of the room. I got detention for vandalism and profanity. I had to spend hours after school scraping gum off of the bottom of desks with a rusty razor blade. Duck you. MRS. Campos. In grade 8 we had to take written exams at the end of every sport. One of my friends thought it was stupid, so she ripped her test up. I laughed. I got sent to the principal's office, but she didn't even get yelled at. Still not sure why that was. We were told to cross out number 8 on a test. I finished the test early, so turned my slash into a big sun looking thing. The teacher angrily showed it to the class and yelled at me for not following instructions. I was always embarrassed by this memory, but thinking about it now just makes me angry. Cutting a class I was in the middle of dropping. There was a delay with the paperwork being processed, but I just didn't see the point in going. The other kids in the in-school room practically fell out of their desks when I walked in. I was an honors student with 0 disciplinary record who got 2 days in school suspension for cutting a freaking AP class. Got a job doing tech work for the school a week after I graduated. I was walking back to my office while class was in session and a substitute teacher stops me and asks where my hall pass was. I respond by showing him my admin walkie-talkie and my keys, explaining that I'm an employee but I don't have an ID badge yet. He gives me the stink eye and ushers me to the front office despite my exasperated protests, and gets halfway through writing a discipline referral while I sit in my new boss's office, principal, waiting for my punishment. Boss walks in, figures out what's going on, and gives the guy a 5-minute lecture about listening to what people are saying. Guy goes back to class dejected and boss and I shared a good laugh. We had a school uniform, which means our socks had to be a specific solid color, black, white, or tan. This one time I wore the correct color socks, but they had the tiniest light pink stripe on the ankle. And my Spanish teacher made me take my socks off or I'd get written up. Still not over it. We were in English class. We ended up watching a scary film to write about atmosphere, like tense, suspense kind of thing. Anyway, this jump scare part comes up and a girl in the class just screams. so I can't contain my laughter and it just bursts out of me. Teacher told me to get out. While I was at the door she said, in fact, take a seat. So I grabbed a chair and took it outside with me. Got in trouble for that, but I gained slightly better face for doing it. In high school I was having a good time mimicking Pingu to a friend, and an aide came up to tell me to stop making fun of the special needs kid. Who was this kid? Still don't know, or else I'll be sent to the office. I was so in shock that she thought I was making fun of someone. I don't think I said anything back other than Pingu. A few weeks later we spotted the same aide doing a Hitler salute and marching around for some laughing students. Went up to inform her that there was a Jewish student around my friend I was doing Pingu impressions for, and this was incredibly rude. She stopped, but seemed very annoyed at my request. Our whole class got suspended on the last day of school for coloring one side of our hairs. It was a small school and the director of the school took it as an attack against her, while it only was meant as a joke. I was sitting in class once about 8th grade. We had a substitute, who was actually from another class and nobody liked him. I drew a cartoon sketch of him being sodomized by our headmaster, a mayor's brother. My mate at the time thought the sketch was funny and kept it. That afternoon at school assembly, my mate puts the sketch, which he had now cut into a silhouette, on the projector during school assembly. Religious zealot headmaster goes apit and threatens virtual death unless culprit comes forward. Mate admits to putting it up, but snitches that I drew it. I got sent home for 3 weeks suspension. The official reason on the letter to my mother said, promoting homosexuality in an all-boys Catholic school. I changed schools the week after returning. Got in trouble for having a pager at my old high school. Yard duty got really pissy when I gave him a confused look. I turned away from him and he grabbed me and tried to push me towards the office. I had graduated a year prior and was volunteering as an EMT who responded to a medical call at the school. A friend of mine used to get sent out of our IT class for laughing at stuff I should have been sent out for. I once stayed at my grandma's and had to handwrite my homework, and because I wasn't using 16-point Times New Roman and only using one side of paper like everyone else, this equated to me only using one piece of lined paper. After handing it in the next day, our teacher put the paper in her hand. Oh, this isn't very heavy, is it? Me. Why would it be? It's a piece of paper. I was pissed off about the fact that I had still done my homework instead of using a very obvious excuse. But I'd have sent me out for answering back. Anyway, my friend Sean laughed and got sent out for hitting a girl in the hallway, even though I did not do it, and the girl even told the teacher I did not hit her. But I still got detention. In nursing school, I got written up for having my hair dyed red. It wasn't some outrageous shade, just a box from the grocery store. But they said it was too unnatural. I'm still annoyed about it. This was in high school. Teacher told us to line up and follow a kid outside by the soccer fields. We go out there, kinda confused. Teacher didn't follow us. The dean comes out and asks why we're not in class. We say teacher said to come out. That didn't fly. So we all got written up for trying to skip class. And our teacher takes the dean's side and says we all just walked up and left. Naturally we are all like WTF. So about 30 parents come to the school and the teacher changes his story and we are all let off the hook. Being the kind of kid who doesn't really get in trouble, I was shooting bricks. I got in trouble for having my arms full and putting a wrapper in the bin with my mouth. I mean, I let go of the wrapper that was in my teeth half a meter above the tiny trash can. It landed in. I didn't litter. I was not making out with the trash can. The teacher acted like I was. First day of grade 10 we got a speech about fresh starts and clean slates for everyone. I walk into my first class and before I've even done anything, my teacher, who I had a year before, moves me from the third row to the front row because he believes I'll learn better. Fresh starts for most kids, I guess.